Hi, and welcome to the Uncensored Journey Podcast, a raw, unfiltered guide to truths that matter. We're diving deep, getting real about what it takes to truly transform inside and out. Ready for truth? Ready for transformation? You're in the right spot. I'm Cyndee, and with me, as always, is Gabriela. Now, let's get uncensored. Hi, Gabriela.
Hi, Cyndee. Today, we have the honor of speaking with Leland Holgate Sr., who has an incredible story of resilience and transformation. Born on June 1st, 1979, in Vicenza, Italy, to parents who were both in the United States Army, Leland grew up with a unique perspective on life. Despite facing significant challenges, including childhood abuse and a traumatic military experience, he has dedicated his life to helping others. Leland's journey took him through Air Force basic training, survival training, and numerous deployments around the world. After a life-changing injury and a difficult battle with addiction, he found solace and purpose in yoga and holistic wellness. He's now a trauma-informed yoga and fitness instructor and working with other somatic-based therapies. In addition to his practical experience, Leland has pursued extensive academic achievement. He recently completed a Bachelor of Science in Performance and Sports Physiology and is currently working on a Master's in Applied Neuroscience and a PhD in Neurochemistry. Leland founded Warriors for Life America, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting military personnel, veterans, and first responders in the transition back to civilian life. Through his work with the Willful Warrior and his Welcome Home breath technique, he has helped thousands of individuals find healing and balance. Leland's story is a testament to the power of resilience and the transformative potential of holistic wellness. Congratulations on completing your bachelor's. I saw that on your Instagram. And I also saw that, like I said, you're pursuing more education.
Yeah.
Which is not the easiest of field. So what's the motivation behind getting all those degrees? And where do you see yourself taking this extensive education?
Yeah. Thank you. It's been amazing, actually. The fun part is, of course, in the beginning, I thought about being a doctor, going the MD route, and then I just noticed that did not align with what I wanted to be or my mission. But with my story and what I have dealt with, it was so easy to dive into the psychology, the neuroscience side of things, because I had to know how I figured out what was happening inside of the body, right? When I was doing the yoga, breath work, and all the other things that I've used to heal myself. So it's really cool actually going through all of this extra education and actually having it be practical and apply to because there's so many times you hear from people that go to college or they get an education and they don't do anything with it, or they can't actually apply that knowledge to what they're doing. So I feel fortunate in that sense, because everything that I'm learning, I can apply to evolving the Welcome Home method and working through more and finding more modalities and ways to help people. So it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. I also read that you are a student of Joe Dispenza, officially or unofficially. I don't know. It seems like you incorporate a lot of his stuff.
Yeah. It's just like everyone else that has been practicing his work and gone to the retreats. I've been fortunate enough to volunteer for him as well. So getting to see how not just his teachings apply, but also how it's just amazing, some of his retreats and the scale of it. So learned quite a bit from him, of course. And a lot of that and some of those principles are seen in what I do with my own little personal flair to it, of course, with the breath work included.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I saw that you have an extensive yoga background. And I was wondering, at what point did you start practicing the yoga aspect of healing and the breath work? Because you've had your back and you're paralyzed from the neck down in a couple of instances, right? And I know that when we spoke, you also told me that you recovered and healed from cancer. So what's the timeline on when you started utilizing yoga and breathwork?
Yeah, that would be closer to my cancer journey is when I really dug in on that, because I was introduced to it, of course, when I was 19, paralyzed from the neck down and laying in bed, because the physical therapist that I was given was a yogi. So he walked in talking about yoga and, of course, taught me pranayama, which is all about breath control. And of course, since I've learned more about not just yoga side of things, but the qigong, but all of it is all linked together with breath. So for a while there, I think I told you it was this, I found a way to physically heal my body, but I hadn't had the philosophy or the mindset kind of land for me at that point in time. It was just getting myself back up on my feet. So it took quite a while. And because I didn't attach to the philosophy side of it and work more on the mindset, of course, even though I healed my body and got up from that accident years later, there was just this looming shadow and cloud that turned into addiction and alcoholism. And finally, about 2015, when I was homeless, a friend of mine had pity and took me in, basically gave me that one shot that everybody hoped for. And I cleaned up completely, did away with the drugs and alcohol, started practicing the yoga side of things personally. And then in 2015, decided, why don't I start teaching this stuff? Like I practice it now. And though I had fallen off of the horse, I still had a pretty damn good practice before that. And I had developed a pretty good practice once I had started cleaning up and becoming sober again. So it was an easy jump for me to decide to want to help other people and to teach other folks. I hadn't thought of the scale that it's on now, but of course I thought about teaching locally, which I started doing. And in 2016 is when my father died by suicide. So it's like a left and a right punch. Father died by suicide. A month later, diagnosed with stage 2 colon cancer with a tumor found in my sigmoid colon. So it was like a 1-2 punch. And of course, there was a fair bit of indignation, righteously, of course, in that moment. I was a little upset about that happening. But what it really did for me was it dug me in on not just my personal practice, but also solidified that I need to be out there doing something more. If my own father, it just hit home. My own father, being a veteran, I have all of these tattoos about the 22, which is now 44 a day, that commit suicide. Now I had experienced that personally in my own home. So it was like a fire underneath my butt. And that catalyst that I was looking for me to recognize. If it hit this close to home, maybe you should take what you've used for yourself, making it through all of these ridiculously hard challenges and circumstances in your life. You found a way through. There's obviously other people that need the same techniques as well, whether it's mental health, physical health, or whatever it is. And that's when I truly dug in during that journey for myself, which was obviously one of the hardest points in my life, but also one of those big turning point forks in the road that were also my biggest blessing. And people look at me funny when I say that kind of stuff. Like, what's the biggest blessing in your life? Cancer. What?
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that. I can't imagine the challenges you've been through. And at the same time, I could relate with the aspect of the toughest things that happen to us are ultimately the reason why we do what we do. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. What else you got? What other questions you got for me?
I have a couple if you don't mind. I was wondering, first of all, I'm so sorry for all your stuff, your losses. I recently lost my dad, not to suicide, but he was also a veteran of the U.S. Air Force and hit a little bit close to home. So, sorry if I had a weird face and freaked out a little bit.
No, that's okay. My condolences.
Thank you. Veterans don't get such a fair play here in this country, and I support anything that helps them through all of their stuff. But I was wondering if you could possibly just give our listeners a better understanding of what breath work is and how and why it works for so many different things, and maybe maybe a little bit of the science behind why it worked for you.
Yeah, absolutely. This is like my favorite conversation, of course. There's the spiritual side of it. And the physiological side of it. And both of them are necessary. And of course, it hits both sides that I like to come from. But the amazing thing that I discovered basically when I was 19 and laying in that bed, and I really didn't know then until about 2016 when I really dug in on teaching yoga, moving in on the philosophies and learning more about the breath and how that had played into my healing at every level and changes and shifts and everything else and the power behind it. And it was pretty amazing once I started diving into the physiology of what's happening inside of your body when you do this breath work. I knew that while I was laying in the bed at the age of 19, and I did these what are called kumbakas inside of yoga, the hold, you breathe a certain way and then you hold in a certain way. And these kumbakas they allow the creation of all these amazing chemicals. And of course, yoga speaks from the philosophy of energies and shifting and changing. But when you dive into the ancient knowledge of everything inside of yoga, qigong, and everything else, it's amazing that these people thousands of years ago actually found pretty much the key to all health and the fountain of youth, essentially. When you look at what happens inside of your body, when you just shift the pattern of how you're inhaling and exhaling, how long those inhales and exhales are, how powerful those breaths are. And that's essentially what we're teaching in the Welcome Home method that I created, is a style of yoga breath work that has also taken a lot of the science evidence and information that I've discovered while moving through this education process and incorporated that in there, knowing that if you sigh a certain way and create vibration through your body as you're breathing, you're creating an upregulation of all of these different hormones and neuromodulators and all of these amazing chemicals and compounds inside of your body. Basically, through breath and meditation alone, you're looking at an increase of different factors, processes, and chemicals and compounds in the body, over 1,400 different chemicals and compounds at one point in time. It's crazy, the cascade of changes and transitions that you create when you're breathing. And you feel it. You absolutely feel it. Like at the age of 19, all I knew was, wow, okay, they're telling me I'm not going to be able to move things and there's a potential it's done. This is what I'm stuck with. But every time I do this breath and then hold, there's stuff happening down there that I can't feel right now, but they're telling me I might never get back. So now moving forward and recognizing that essentially what you're doing is activating all the nerve cells within your body as you control your breath. And that's exactly what's happening with breath. Is the bridge, the connection between the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. It's the connection between peace and harmony or stress and anxiety. It really is. And you can shift it so quickly. One of the techniques I created actually is called 60 seconds to freedom. And quite literally, a 10 breath, less than a minute, and you can absolutely shift the profile of hormones in your body from fight or flight to relax and rest and digest. Pretty amazing how quickly it works. And what I figured out, of course, when everything happened with Dad and with the cancer, was it is magical for psychological health, for your mental health. The things that it can do physically for your body, amazing. We're seeing people with MS patients have messaged us and told us that they have turned off the progression of their disease. It's no longer progressing forward. And that is a very aggressive type of neurological disorder inside of the body. So they're just halting it. We've also got some people that are also experiencing sensation in areas that they haven't had for over 10 to 12 years, complete spinal cord injuries that are feeling below the area of their injury, which is said to be impossible by a complete spinal cord injury. So there's so many things that are amazing and happening. But the biggest thing that I noticed was that psychological effect. My God, this thing that's going, the monkeys jumping up and dancing and yabbering for all the attention. And you do 60 seconds to freedom or any of the breath practices inside of the Welcome Home method, and it just silences it right down. It brings it right down to a normal level where you can actually listen to it, but not have to experience that overwhelming constant chatter of the mind and looking at all these different things. So it's been absolutely amazing, especially when I work with my veteran brothers and sisters now, because we're getting folks. One of them is going to be in my book, actually, Heal Yourself, that I'm finishing up on right now. And he was a Army combat veteran to the point where normal life didn't fit for him anymore. He was there. His body came back, but he did not come back himself. Things would happen and he would jump, or he would hit the ground and go into the grocery store, something falls. And to see the shift and change inside of him in literally days, and now months and months later, I think he's been practicing for a little over 16 to 18 months now. He's the happiest dude you've ever seen in your life. He's walked away from all alcohol, drug use, whatever else. Everything, absolutely everything shifted for him. And it's cool to see it now, because that's what I experienced. And with Dad doing what he did, as much as it sucked, it led me to one of the greatest gifts that I could possibly give to the people that I serve now, which is amazing. So, amazing what the breath can do and how simple it is. And guess what? It's free. You're born with it. That's the best part, right? You don't have to ask anybody. If anything, if you don't know how to do it, I love being the guide, but I've always told everybody that comes in to breathe with me that it's not me doing it, it's you doing the work. You may follow my word, you may follow my instructions and guidance, but it's you, and it's proof of how simple it is to make a shift in any level of your life at any point in time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that explanation. I was just thinking as you're talking about how even our Navy SEALs use breathing techniques, like they use a box breath to help them in stressful situations. And so I think this breath work thing is catching on with a lot of people, even if they don't really realize that they're doing it. So I think that's really a funny coincidence. But I was curious. I studied traditional Shaolin Kung Fu a while back, and with that was Qigong and the Tai Chi, all the internal stuff. But my question to you was, like, how did you marry that Qigong with yoga? What made you do like Indian and Chinese philosophies, and how did that lend to each other?
Yeah, excellent question. And it was funny because it started because I have several friends that are Qigong instructors. And there's always that teasing and playing back and forth. Qigong was first, yoga was first. No, Qigong was first, yoga was okay, whatever. They're both sister sciences. They've been around for thousands and thousands of years. But I started to really cultivate an interest in Tumo breathing, which comes from a Qigong background, of course, and some of the other styles of breath that they were doing as well. And I just noticed the interconnectivity between both yoga and Qigong. Of course, yoga is more about static holds and isometric hold versus Qigong moving and refreshing and really syncing the energy or chi or life force. But both of them, when you look at it, you have Qi on one side, which is energy, life force. You have prana on the other side. Same, but different. So it's like different names, but exact same likeness. That the teachings inside of all of it are very similar. The only difference is, like I'm saying, is the motion versus the still and static holds inside of yoga. But the philosophies and the breath in both of them, there is some differences, of course. Tumo style of breathing, which is what the reset breath inside of the Welcome Home method is built off of. But when I put the two of them together, it was so powerful that it was unmistakable. When I mixed the Strika and Shitali breath with the Tumo breath and some of these other styles from Qigong, the feeling and the creation of energy and bliss that I had found inside of that moment was far greater than if I had just experienced it by one style of breathing. That's how I found the marriage between the two of them and pulled both of them in with also a little bit of scientific breathing, like psychological, physiological side, some other things that I've pulled in there. So it's been this beautiful marriage of yoga, Qigong, and science. And they've all had a big baby.
I love that. That's so powerful. And I've dabbled in Qigong a little bit myself, but I think Cyndee's the expert in this group. So I had a question. You talk about breath hold in your healing. I have a little bit of Kundalini yoga under my belt. So Is that the hold, the lock hold, the root hold? Is that what you're talking about? And if that's what you're talking about, then if you're paralyzed and you can't feel your body, how do you do those holds?
Yeah, this is an excellent question. There are several forms of kumbhaka or hold side of yoga. One of them is that inhale hold where you're filled with oxygen. One of them is an exhale hold. And then there are many of the holds, especially the inhale and exhale holds, where you're not actually engaging any bandha points or what are called lock points for those that don't know what bandhas are. Many of the breaths that I use, there's actually no bandha constriction whatsoever. So we're not engaging the bandhas whatsoever. We're allowing that energy to flow freely up and down as we move through breath, which is literally what you're doing as you inhale. You're not just breathing and inspiring, which is what the inhale is called, an inspiration, but you're also pulling and vacuuming that cerebral spinal fluid up your spinal column. So you're creating this amazing energy flow that's traveling through the energy body and the physical body, as well as that elevation of oxygen and all these amazing things that are happening the more that you move through. So these different holds, especially for those that are dealing with paralysis, the beautiful part about the Welcome Home method is I basically developed the breath to not have to restrict any of the bandha points. I have some of those in there. One of them, folks that have practiced with Dr. Joe have heard it called pulling the body out of the mind. In yoga, it's called Agni Sara. And there's a form of that in Qigong as well. There's so many different variations of this. There's some in Kundalini yoga, some in dream yoga. But I have developed a way basically in just following ancient philosophy, nothing that I created on myself, just discovering what's there inside of science and the ancient text, that you don't have to use those lock points, which is great for people that can't express that whatsoever. And a lot of people, even if you can do the bandha points, these yoga and Tibetan monks have been practicing that stuff where they're doing the Kegel exercises like 8 hours a day. So of course it's easy for them to drop stuff up there. For folks like us, though, it can be frustrating. So again, for even people that can restrict or constrict those bandha points, I love the Welcome Home method because it pulls a lot of that out of there and allows you to just get in with the flow of your breath and change absolutely everything.
Thank you. Thank you. One quick question. I know, Cyndee, you have a follow-up question. I do too. So that's incredible. So the reason why I was asking you was because I was like, okay, if you were not doing the whole, did you do a lot of visualization? And
Yeah.
did you see yourself walking and all of those things?
Yes. Oh my God. You hit like the main point. That's breath is number one inside of the Willful Warrior, and mindset and seeing yourself as that desired result is number two of the game. It really is. The third day before the physical therapist was introduced to me was the day that I had just decided and screamed out loud to the doctor, no, this is not going to be my experience for the rest of my life. I'm changing this. And the moment that I decided that, absolutely everything started happening the way that I saw it or wanted it to happen. So mindset is so huge that even now inside of our spinal cord injury practices, it's all based on visualization. We're activating both sides of the neuron structures. There's the motor neurons, and then there's the sensory neurons. And I'm working with both of them, just firing and wiring every single connection inside of the body throughout those practices. And visualization is the key to all of that for sure. That's an excellent question.
My follow-up question isn't as profound, but I just wanted to circle back in the yoga versus Qigong, what came first?
Yeah.
Kamo, right, came from India to China. So there would be an argument that yoga came first, but I can't even remember his name is in Indian is like Bodha Dharma or something like that.
That was one of them. And then there's Patanjali.
Yeah. But anyways, he traveled all that way and brought us brought China all this amazing stuff. But my follow-up question to you is about like pressure points and meridians. Do you do is there any kind of work that you do within that aspect to get
personally
moving?
Yeah, personally I do. But since I'm not trained Qigong wise, I don't teach it. So you won't find it inside of some of the teachings that I do. But of course, I work with EFT, I work with acupuncture, acupressure, all that good stuff in personal practice. And it's something I always suggest to folks for sure, even if it's not something I personally work with.
Awesome. Do you want to expand a little bit on your welcome home?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the best ways to do it is I'm going to take you guys through 60 seconds to freedom real quick. So anybody that is watching this right now, you'll get to experience it, and then we'll dive in and I'll nerd the hell out with you on what's happening, why you felt that way, all these other things that
All right, let's do it.
Awesome. Okay. So we are going to be breathing, and this is where you all get to see. Let me turn on that original sound so you can hear my breath. This is where you get to see the mixture of yoga breathing, which is called Bhastrika. Bhastrika simply means that you're really working the bellows, which means you're working the diaphragm, right? All of this breath is going to be through the belly. And Qigong, the same thing is true as well. Even in the Tumo breathing, you're allowing the stoking of the lower Dantian, or the lower heaven. So this is where all that fire comes from, right? So this is where, again, the two bridges cross, and they both teach essentially the same thing. So we're going to mix that with a Tumo style of breath, which is a very rapid exhale. And then we're going to breathe in and out through the nose. The only difference here is we're not going to exhale through the mouth, which is traditional Tumo. We're going to breathe in and out through the nose. In doing this, we're creating the most resistance possible, which allows you to fill up as much as you can, and it allows you to empty out as much as you can, which is key in this. So we're just going to take 10 simple breaths in and out of the nose, and this is with power and sound, all right? I don't want you to struggle and strain. I want this to flow like a dance through your belly. And with that power, everything coming through the belly, it's going to sound like this for 10 breaths, okay? So we're just going to move through 10 of those. Oh, God, I love that feeling. Even in 4 breaths, you start to feel this really amazing tingle. All right, I'll nerd out with you, like I said, afterwards. I'll tell you what all that stuff means. But you're going to feel this amazing bliss. I promise you. Just keep going. I'll count for us. At the very end, we're going to pull in what's called a kumbhaka, or a hold. I'm going to have you breathe in all the way as far as you can. You're going to hold at the top. Here's the key. When you hold, I want you to melt. The body naturally starts to tense up, of course, because you're holding your breath. So naturally, it's going to work out of survival instinct. But the more that you just melt, let your shoulders fall, let go of your mind, you can watch the movie without trying to participate. The more you sink in, what's called the deep diver effect will happen. And there's a lot of amazing things I'll let you figure out on your own. Heads up, don't do this if you're driving. Please don't be standing or walking right now. Make sure you're sitting down with maybe the back of a chair, something that's going to catch you if you fall back. There's a lot of amazing feelings that you create, and a lot of amazing blissful chemicals that you create too. So there's the chance to get a little woozy and blissed out. All right? Okay, here we go. So just sit back in your chair. Let your hands rest on your knee. And take a breath in all the way up and hold your breath. Let your shoulders fall. Release tension. Start to notice how it feels to let the belly just naturally puff. This is where we're going to breathe from. In and out through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Throw it out like a spear. Breathe with that continual breath. No pauses in between the inhale and exhale. Keep that going. Just 3 more. You feel the tingles and tension. Continue to breathe. You're almost there. Now 1 more. And breathe in all the way up, and hold. You can soften or close your eyes. Swallow into your belly. Let your shoulders fall. Let your face melt. Hold and melt. And when you're ready, slowly start to exhale and feel that cascade of chemical moving through the body. And take your time coming back. And that's just 60 seconds. So we do 20, 30, 60-minute, sometimes 2-hour, 3-hour practice of that.
That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
And you promised us the nerd.
Nerd. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. So as you're moving through that breath, you started to feel those tingles, right? This is a key piece in the puzzle. We're creating what's called vasoconstriction by using a process called cyclic hyperventilation. So you noticed I didn't let you take any pauses. It was inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And then doing that, you elevate your oxygen, right? So you become what's called hyperoxygenated, and then you're pushing CO2 out of the body. CO2 is actually what tells you to breathe. It's not a lack of oxygen. It is an increase of CO2 inside of the body that automatically tells the body, hey, you need to exhale and then inspire, which means take in another breath. So the more that we offload that CO2, that means we can hold for longer and longer. And the key piece to that is those holds are what we call acute intermittent hypoxia. And we say the word acute because we only use it in small form. Holding your breath for too long or over too much of a period of time too often will create chronic, horrible hypoxia, which is bad for the body. But the way that we use it inside of the breath is we move through these breath events as you experienced. You create a lot of these tingles and a lot of these feelings that are coming from the upregulation of your oxygen and your nitric oxide. So this basically is signaling your body to completely shift and change into this survival mode. So it's a bit of a biohack. You're basically telling your body, hey, I need you to start kicking out the most healing compounds and chemicals. And it follows suit. It actually does. It starts creating things called trophic factors whenever we especially hold. And those hold, you feel that bliss and everything else. It's an increase of pressure, which is also telling the body to create levels of dimethyltryptamine, which is a psychedelic compound our body creates, very neuroprotective. So it's a chemical the body produces when you're born, when you're dreaming, and when you die. And the reason behind that is it's one of the last-ditch efforts that your body spits out to keep you alive. In fact, what we notice is when people have a heart attack, they do have that experience, the body's producing high levels of dimethyltryptamine, and they actually find that most people that are experiencing a heart attack are automatically in gamma because the body's creating all of those compounds and shifting, just doing everything it can, trying to keep you alive. And in that similar fashion, that's exactly what you're doing when you use the breath. When you follow these ancient techniques, you're literally signaling and switching the body into certain processes that it starts to kick out dimethyltryptamine. It starts to kick out dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, endorphin, this wide array of what we call neuromodulators, which now we know there's not just neurotransmitters, which helps one neuron talk to another, right? Another nerve cell talks to one nerve cell. These neuromodulators now activate entire brain regions. So as you felt right there, there's this just rush of chemicals, this brand new creation of proteins and tissues. You upregulated the production of your white blood cells by doing that. The barrage of physiological effects that you just created in a minute is mind-numbing when I put it down on paper. And it's really cool to continue to study all this stuff. So that's obviously, I could go on for 8 weeks if you wanted me to about some of the nerd stuff in there, but that's the gist of it. Is you're literally changing everything inside of your body all the way to the point where, to scale, what you've done in your body is at the level of what a supernova is to the universe. It's pretty amazing.
That's incredible. So if someone like Cyndee or I, who are healthy and we're not looking to create huge transformation within us, how often would you recommend to do this, and for how long? I think you're going to tell me daily and for a certain number of time. It's like a limited amount, but what?
Yeah. So you picked up on that. Yeah. Daily practice, of course. When you think of it in the way of what the breath does, it's essentially like taking a vitamin or a pill. that pill will interact with your body, create certain chemicals, compounds, and processes that only last for a certain amount of time. So for those that are just looking to maintain balance, maybe experience a little more peace, right? There's nothing really big that you're working on, but you want to be just in that good space twice a day, maybe 20 to 30 minutes a day would be amazing, because then you're giving the body these chemicals that last for 4, sometimes 8 to 12 hours, which is amazing. So it's cool that you only 20, 30 minutes of breath, and that's going to last you for hours and hours.
That's amazing. What about if for someone that is fighting cancer or they need to heal?
Yeah. So somebody that is working, cancer is a very unique situation. There's different breath types that I will have some of my cancer warriors doing that I would have doing from other folks, or some other adjustments like CO2 breathing, which is super key in a lot of the practice. So there's some different breaths for the cancer folks. I love working with our cancer warriors. There's some amazing responses by the body when you do practice this breath work. And for both them or anybody healing from like a neurological condition, we work with Parkinson's, MS, anybody that is dealing with any kind of aphasia or anything neurological. I would suggest at least 3 times a day, because now you're just making sure you have that middle point in the day too, that you're just keeping the body nice and pure. One of the things for anybody that is dealing with either disease or disorder is you create an alkaline environment. When you create and express this high oxygen, low carbon dioxide environment, you create alkalinity. So, of course, as we know, an alkaline, high alkaline environment in 7.4, 7.5, disease can't exist. Nothing can exist inside of that environment. So you're giving the body 3 chances through the day to purify and cleanse, to drop and release toxins and all these different things. So that 3 times, like 20 to 30 minutes, of course, for those folks that are working on that, a lot of CO2 and heart math breathing. I'm also a heart math certified trainer. So I do a lot of that as well for them to help keep the body in homeostasis, inside of coherence. And then for folks that are doing neurological stuff like spinal cord injury, those ones I suggest maybe 2 hours a day if you can. If you can, maybe even 3 hours a day, because of course, in that instant, you're healing nerve tissue to the point that you want more of those trophic factors, like I did. I was a crackhead when I was learning this stuff and creating all these chemicals. Yeah, and the great thing is that's what I do, is I work with either a population, a group of people, or on the individual basis. That way we can personalize this. And that's what's amazing. If you follow the ancient text, breath is not meant to be taught one way. I have been taught this. It's meant to be interchangeable and to put into a practice. And I think that was one of the things that I noticed in a lot of breath work that's out there, Wim Hof and other things, that there's not a lot of focus on the aspect of pain inside of a situation. A woman does not need to be doing this stuff when they're on their moon cycle. Like, the last thing you need to be doing right now is stoking the fire. When your body needs a little more yin, is shedding things and letting go. So we take a lot of that into account, whether you're healing from something, need a little shift in hormonal profile, whatever the body needs, your situation needs.
I love that, because there's so much information and studies about all these health biohacks that are great for men, but there's not that much talk about how to customize it to a woman's body and to a woman's cycle. So yes, thank you for saying that.
Yeah, my pleasure. I recognize the same vacuum there. I'm like, man, they're not getting enough attention. You guys have you have a different hormonal profile than we do. You guys need different stuff every now and then.
Yeah, we do. And yeah, we have different seasons in our lives as well. So many differences.
Yeah. Any other questions? What else you got?
Oh, did you want to go ahead?
Oh, do you have something?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I have a whole bunch I've been taking notes. Sorry. I was just curious to know, like, that when people are hyperventilating and they hand you a bag and I'm wondering if that's it's like the same principle. Like, interesting that we do things naturally without knowing that there's any kind of science base behind it.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah, no, that's that epic point. And when you think about it, when you're breathing into that bag, what are you breathing? You're recycling that CO2 for yourself. So obviously nobody told us when they handed us the bag what it was doing first, but we noticed, holy crap, that really worked. And that's because you're increasing CO2 inside of the body, which is one of the techniques that you can use in breath work. And it's counterintuitive because we've been told it's a waste gas. It's not. It's not a waste gas. It's actually super necessary because it unlocks the oxygen inside of our body. That's literally the key to opening up the oxygen that we breathe in. So breathing into a bag and hyperventilating like that creates that process inside of the body. It actually takes you down into the parasympathetic, a little more relaxed, which is obviously counterintuitive to what we've been taught.
Yes, but it's so interesting to me how we do things so instinctually that we don't even know is there's any kind of healing basis behind it or any kind of scientific basis behind it, but it's just something that was either passed down and don't know why you do it, or something that your body just naturally does. And I just find it super interesting.
Yeah. And to your point too, if you think about it, there's something else everybody does and we didn't recognize that it was so healthy. And if you put it into like breath work, like I use it, it's called a physiological sigh. Think about it. Somebody pisses you off, your kid makes you mad, your spouse makes you mad, or your partner makes you mad. You immediately just sigh, and that is inside of breath work, actually. If used on purpose, intentionally, it's just the body's natural way of somatically releasing all this energy out of the nervous system, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. Can we circle back to the breath work with addiction? That's something that's near and dear to my heart. I know Gabriela's probably really tired of me talking about it, but I like to learn about it in any aspect because I'm in a 12-step program, not for addiction, but other stuff, but for friends and family of addicts. And I'm just curious to know about that. Is that something that's in conjunction with a 12-step program, or is that something that replaces a 12-step program? Like, how does that work I know that addicts' brains are wired differently, and it is a disease too, just like cancer or any other disease you might have. Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So inevitably, of course, when you experience addiction, whether it's alcoholism, whether it's anything out there, drugs, whatever it might be, there's this switch in synaptic activity. There's this change inside of the chemical profile of the body, of course. The beautiful part is what I discovered is, especially when I was coming off of heroin and amphetamine, there is a huge vacuum of compounds, minerals, chemicals, and all of these different things that happens inside of the body because, of course, the opioids take over our receptors for those that are dealing with addiction on that level of thing. Whether it's a mental addiction or whether it's anything else, that same thing can be said to be true. Is there some sort of process that has basically made the body super dependent on whatever that process or substance is? So in that way, that has to be replaced. And the only way that I found my way through it, and I do not suggest anybody do this, I'm just telling you my experience. I went cold turkey off of heroin. It was the worst 6 weeks of my life. I'm surprised many other people, including medical professionals, are surprised that I lived through that experience because there's this serious void inside of the body of dopamine to catastrophic levels, like just bottoms out on you. So there's no increase in serotonin and things that keep your heart pumping and keep you moving and producing normal results as a human being. It helped with that, of course, because breath was the only thing that got me through that. I would obviously suggest you have some sort of support, whether it is a 12-step program or whether it is a support group or whatever that is for yourself. I would definitely suggest some sort of medical professional to be by your side. And then, of course, a support group or something like we have a support group for addicts. We have that for different disorders and diseases as well. But the support mixed with the breath is magic, absolute magic, because now you have the supportive unit of healing, which truly does happen in community. The more that you study any type of medicine, you recognize that true healing happens when you're supported, when you're held, when you're understood, seen, and heard. The support and the breath, absolute magic, everything that you could ever use. Of course, now that I'm studying both neurochemistry and neuropsychology, I will be one of those psychologists that if you need pharmacological interference, then that is something that is temporary. Of course, I don't want anybody to experience the hell I did for 6 weeks, crawling to my bathroom on my elbows, not even making it half of the time. So I'm one of those that look to pull from all modalities, Eastern and Western, to make sure that we support you on your journey and what you need for you specifically. And the breath is epic, especially for anybody who's on any kind of antipsychotics, antidepressant, or any of those things. It really does help to wean you off of a lot of those things. That's what it did for me. It was amazing. I think I was on 13 friggin' pills, benzos. They were just that's what they do at the VA. Oh, okay, yeah, here, take all of these things, and then eventually you're just a zombie. So it really helped me edge off of all of that stuff. And then, of course, the street drugs that came following the prescription drug.
Oh my God. I've seen people detoxing off of heroin before, and I cannot believe you did that by yourself and live to tell the tale, to be quite honest.
God, that was the worst.
That sounds horrible. With that kind of along the lines, I know this podcast is going to come out later, but right now we're in June and it's Men's Mental Health Month.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if you could shed some light or give some wisdom or something for how men can benefit from these types of things, specifically men. I know mental health a lot of times gets lumped into females and that kind of stuff. So I think especially men, but men and veterans too, that get lumped into things that aren't as important, I guess. So I just wanted to show some importance and maybe have some wisdom from you about what men can do to get started in this breath work and helping with their mental health and addiction.
Yeah, I'm glad you focused on that. That's amazing, because I don't even blame folks for overlooking that, because in fact, it feeds into even the stigma that we've experienced as men, right? Don't cry, stop being a pussy. The weakness is for girls, emotions, they're for ladies. Stop crying, Susie. All the stuff that we've heard since we were younger, programmed essentially not to feel. And beautifully enough, for anybody watching this now, you can go to our YouTube, just type in The Willful Warrior. You'll see our logo is the phoenix wings with a heart in the center there. And inside of that is a Father's Day practice that we just did. I did a Father's Day special. I'm leaving it up there for the rest of the year for people as a gift for Men's Mental Health Month. And that's what we talked about, is there's so much stigma that's been placed around mental health for men that it's crazy now that we're watching it, that veil come off of it. Now we're discovering that over 73% of men like myself had experienced some sort of child molestation or something horrible in that sexual assault side of things. So it's us too, right? You ladies, us, it's experienced by both sides. And it's great now to have the conversation around the stigma, because the biggest thing that breath will help you do is it will help you feel all the feels. And that's an important aspect of psychology that I like to bring out as a training psychologist myself, is you have to be able to feel it to heal it. And if everything in your life has been repressed or pushed down, that's typically where any dis-ease or disorder comes from. The names of those things themselves, what we have seen in society is they seem like a death sentence, right? Because of the words dis-ease and disorder, which in fact, they only created because most of the time they didn't know what the hell was going on. It's a dis-ease inside of the body that created some sort of disorder. What that tells us is we can use breath work and other healing modalities to create ease in the body and order inside of the body. And especially when you look at it on the psychological side for Men's Mental Health Month, this practice that's on there, I created a 60-minute practice that I'm just going to leave as a gift, like I said, for men and anybody mental health wise, allows you to really tune into the experience behind the breath. And there's many times inside of the breath myself that when I focus on the feeling side of it and allowing myself to feel repressed memories and emotions and trauma, I ugly cry sometimes, which is absolutely liberating and amazing. And the more I talk to the men that I'm serving, including the veterans, the more it's become welcome, normalized, and something that is becoming commonplace now. Whereas before, I'd look over and see my brother across from me crying in a circle and I go, oh, there you go. All right. Yep. Get it out, Sally. Now I look over and instead of thinking something like that, would actually congratulate him or give him a hug or something along those lines. Now that we're looking at it, even as men, we're allowing ourselves to look at these things as something that is revered, thought after, normal, and necessary all at the same time, which has not been the conversation up until this point.
So grateful for you for leading that charge, because I think the more men that are out there doing this work, the better. And yeah, that's why we're in the mess we're in right now, because we have suppressed men's emotions for so long. And even I think even women too, because showing vulnerability is not usually associated with strength. Like for me, I was raised not to display emotion outside of the home and only to display it within the home, and never to, I had to act the part or play the role of good daughter, everything's fine. So yeah, this is incredibly useful and needed. Emotions are great.
Yeah, we must feel them.
I had a question. I have a friend. He has quite a lot of physiological issues, and she's looking at a procedure right now that would basically burn off her nerve within parts of her body so that it would stop the pain, because they don't know what's causing it. And if we had more time, I would go into how I believe that every disease is just an imbalance of the psyche and the trauma that's not processed. But I wanted to ask you, with this breath work and with this technique, how long do you think it would take to have the new nerves grow? Let's say she gets the procedure done and then she combines the breath work along with other modalities to heal herself. What would that look like?
Oh, goodness. This is a good question. And you're right. By the way, everything inside of the body, especially disease-wise or autoimmune, is brought about because of some sort of imbalance that's happened. Emotions that have been pushed down and not dealt with and all of that. But on the question of what she would do after the burning of the nerves, it's hard to say depending on how far they go, right? It depends on the damage they do with how long it would take the body itself to heal. You figure every time you're doing the breath work and you enter into that state of hypoxia, the body has a chance to create what a state called neurogenesis, which is actually when it does create stem cells, progenitor cells, trophic factors, and the alike. But there's no way to tell based on the damage they do, how long it would take for any type of healing, the level of healing. So I'm really careful at giving any promises to anybody on timelines or anything. You never really know, especially when you mess with any nerves. When is she going in for the procedure? Because if she has a few weeks, if she started with a daily practice, I would be surprised if she didn't feel some sort of shift or change before the procedure that might at least give her a second thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometime in July, and she's thinking of postponing it. So I'm glad.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Just so she knows, I work with people that have CRPS, complex regional pain syndrome. This is it's a similar issue. Complex regional pain syndrome is there's nothing wrong in the body, but some reason the nervous system is activated. There is something wrong in the body, and you'll get pain that creates just extreme pain, all the way to the point where some folks experience it to where they call it suicide's disease. The pain is just so immense. Every nerve ending is constantly firing off. But again, with what we're doing with the breath work and the cascade of changes that happens to that, one of our people who is also a veteran, the one who had CRPS, actually couldn't walk her dog anymore because the pain was so bad. And after just a couple of days of doing the breath work, was walking her dog and bawling her eyes out because she hadn't done it in months. So there's some like real immediate changes that happen for those that are dealing with any kind of imbalance, especially neurologically. This is just magic for the nervous system.
Yeah, I think she would benefit greatly. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I had one One other question. Based on your own experiences, what advice would you give to people that are struggling with their own battles and looking for a path to a better life?
Yeah. First step, notify yourself that what you're going through is normal. It's okay to feel the way that you're feeling. It's normal to feel the way that you're feeling. So whether you're angry, despondent, sad, depressed, whatever you're experiencing, you're allowed to feel that way. There's a reason you feel that way. I would lean into those feelings more. A lot of the time in this society, we're taught to lean back, take a 20-foot view of the situation and then decide what you're going to do. When in fact, what I've learned is moving from the heart, coming from a heart-centered way of being, breathing through whatever is coming up and then allowing that to be welcome, present, normal, and okay is how you find healing in any level or of any kind inside of your life. Because the more that we bring light to those dark spaces of ourselves that have been begging for attention for years and years is truly how we find true healing and wholeness inside of our experience as a human.
So, thank you. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
I think this has been so amazing. I've learned so much, and also came to realize a couple of things. I'm sitting here listening to you talking about breath work, and then we talked about how we do it naturally, and I was thinking about I lift weights. I power lift, we use breath to lift heavier. So we're using our breath to push weight around all the time, but not even realizing. I just now dawned on me that it's breath work. Thank you for that. And my coach is constantly screaming at me, "Don't hold your breath! Don't hold your breath!" Now I will give him a little bit more leeway on that one because I know that he's right.
I love it.
Now I do. But I just wanted to first and foremost thank you for your time, but also thank you for your service to our country and all the things that you subsequently had to go through in doing. That's a huge sacrifice, and I'm grateful. I'm sure a lot of other people are as well. But
My honor. Thank you.
awesome. One last question for you before we let you go. Is there any phrase or mantra that you are living by right now, or that's your life mantra, whatever, just some sort of something?
Yeah, there's one for the movement that we have, which is we breathe together, we heal together. And personally for myself, whether it's breath work, meditation, or just out and about in the world, my phrase or mantra in Sanskrit is Sat Chit Ananda, which is reality, consciousness, and bliss. When you pay attention to everything that is the human experience, it is love, it is bliss wrapped into an infinite web of different experiences, some of them not pleasant, some of them pleasant. But when you pay attention to absolutely all of it and allow yourself to experience whatever is happening, there's some sort of growth. There's some sort of happening or being that happens from those moments.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And other than the Willful Warrior is .org, right?
Yes, .org.
Yes.
The
Where else
willfulwarrior.org.
Awesome. Where else can we find you?
YouTube as well. You've got me on all the social platforms that you can think of. The Willful Warrior is there as well. And we've got a lot of free offerings for you to try out on the YouTube and a lot of good information on the website.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. And thank you everybody for joining us this week. Please subscribe on all platforms, and you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Uncensored Journey. You can follow me at The Worth Warrior, and you can find all of Gabriela's social media at phoenixmedicine.me. Until next week, bye.